Hello everyone, I'm Erum Tasneem for Altenew. Welcome to Creative Coloring with Erum. Today's project is slightly different from what I usually share here and is inspired by the Altenew Academy class Demystifying Mixed Media by my lovely friend Tanya Ahmed. I will be using the Dark Rose panel A and B die on my project today. And I've already went ahead and die cut the Dark Rose panel B die in Turquoise Cardstock, and I will be using Galactic Stream Crisp Dye ink to ink this panel with a blending brush. Because the paper is already the cardstock, so you don't need a lot of ink. The inking doesn't have to be uniform. Once done, I'll trace around the die cut to cut a backing for my panel. You can use a rectangle die for this too. I don't have a rectangle die, and I also don't mind cutting. This turquoise cardstock is from the Altenew store, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to darken the panel a bit more, and while it's still a tad wet with the ink, I'll pour over crystal clear embossing powder. And it's okay the powder doesn't cover the entire panel because the ink would have already dried. We are going for a grungy look, so it doesn't matter if the embossing powder sticks on all the areas or not. Here is a look at the panel after heat setting. I absolutely love this look. Now I'll ink the panel that's going to go behind this, only on the edges, and then I'll put the two together to see how they look. Just to add that glowy center, I'll add inking on the edges. It looks really cool. Now I've die cut the Dark Rose panel A die as well, and for this, this is how it looks right now. And what I'm going to do is I'll just swipe the Galactic Stream dye ink pad over this piece. You can definitely ink a panel and then die cut the dye out of it, but I didn't want that. I wanted mine more grungy and textured and not uniformly inked. So swiping it is for me. And you can see the result. I will also use a blending brush to add more inking into the nooks and crannies and leftover parts. One more reason I didn't want to ink the panel before die cutting is because I wanted to cover this with clear embossing powder too, and had I colored it or inked it prior to die cutting, it would have dried. Yeah, you can also use embossing ink, but I prefer this rustic look this technique gives. I'm going to pour over crystal clear embossing powder now and heat set it. Can you see the variation of shades? And I will show you the whole thing. It looks so cool. But I'm not done yet. Next step. Now I'm taking gold from the metallic watercolors and I'm going to put some of it on the palette. And then with my finger, I'm going to apply some of the pigment over the clear embossed frame. I will not apply it everywhere, but I'm applying in some places. Once you are happy with the look, heat set it right away so that the clear embossing powder that's already on there seals it. Look how gorgeous this looks. I'm going to glue all these pieces together. I picked out a few card fronts and then chose to go with craft. And to add more to the vintage grungy look, I decided to add a bit of inking to the edges. And for this I usually go with distress inks, but I had this milk chocolate dye ink which looked perfect with the craft. So I inked the edges lightly with a blending brush. Next, I took my scissors and distressed the edges of the panel. You can even do this with a knife. I'm using the outer edge of the scissors, by the way, so it's not going to ruin the blade of the scissors. I'm adding a matte behind the die cut panel, and for that I'm going for an off-white cardstock, which I will ink with the leftover ink on the palette and the blending brush. Next, I thought the card needed more gold, so I will swipe the Versamark pad on the edges of the craft panel and also use my fingertip to tap some of the embossing ink onto the borders. I'll pour over the antique gold embossing powder and then heat set it. A tip: try to heat set it from underneath the panel instead of from over it, so that you don't blow off the loose embossing powder away. Trust me, in this case we need that loose extra excess embossing powder for the gorgeous look. I'll put the card together, and at this point I realized I need a little bit more gold, and now I will add some gold splatters from the metallic watercolor set. I adhered the panel on card front with the foam tape and then added the sentiment from the sentiment strips too. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I had so much fun, and massive thanks to Tanya for all the creative energy that's running through me right now after watching her class. Demystifying Mixed Media, guys, you have to check it out. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.